Hello. Today we're going to be making some comparisons and advantages and privileges by taking a glimpse at health disparity populations. So, disabled Americans face a spectrum of barriers due to discrimination, cultural bias, healthcare inequities, and accessibility challenges. So 12% of the population, here, let me get this out of your way, was described to have significant disabilities in 2025. And disabled folks are four times more likely to report health as fair or poor than those without disabilities. And it's important to note that health disparities can be attributed to both inequities and unavoidable differences. So, some definitions for these inequities are defined as avoidable and can be tied to historical, environmental, social, and economic disadvantages, which that subpopulation has faced. And then unavoidable differences, those are going to be either avoidable or unavoidable causes, but they're not deemed to have a larger systemic correlation. That's just the case for that person. So now I'm going to ask you some questions I want you to think about as they pertain to accessibility in your life through infrastructure. So think for a moment, how long is the mobility aid accessible route compared to the fastest route on your daily commute? And then what kinds of everyday technology and resources do you have the ease of ability to use for your best convenience where some people cannot? And then finally, what supports do you or do you not rely upon to get you through the motions of your day? And how might this differ for others that you know? So when I compare this to my own life, I drive a car when I'm traveling what I would consider to be long distances. It's like a mile or more, and it's maybe not like a sidewalk accessible area. And then I walk for most of the time for those shorter distances, where, there's sidewalks and just, but as a disabled person with fluctuating mobility needs, sometimes I need a cane to get around for these shorter distances, but this is extremely rare, as most of my symptoms don't correlate with my mobility needs. So navigating for the UMass campus, for example, is something that I face few challenges with most of the time. So you may have heard the phrase before, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And you may also have heard of the issues that some disabled folks may have with the sentiments often associated with this phrase. And so I want you to ask yourself here, how much time and preparation goes into the daily goings on of your life? And can you identify any barriers that you face as the world keeps turning, but you're not at a capacity to engage with the outside demands assumed of you? So more so than just sociocultural, this is, ties into like really like economic structures, right? So at least, of what I could really identify in my own experience as a disabled person. So for me, access to insurance and effective treatment, medical treatment supports my health and daily function significantly in a world where I must go to work to make a living. So this is something that not every disabled person has. And, because of economic need, many of us tie our self-worth to our productivity. And in turn, these cultural values reinforce the pressure, that is put on health disparity populations to risk their safety, for survival. And so this brings me to some opportunities to think about that disabled people face economically and what choices people have about, income related to that. So 11.4% of all Social Security benefits nationwide are attributed to disability benefit recipients, and 10% of that portion is comprised of disabled workers. So the key thing here is that we have to realize that disabled people may choose to work or go on disability benefits depending on many different reasons, including existing support structures or lack thereof that they have. So the decision to stop work or begin working again can be incredibly difficult for many Americans to make. So these are my sources. And thank you so much for listening.